Thank you. Thank you. We are both very honored to be here joining you at the annual conclave of wizards, although we do confess we're a little bit confused why you invited us here.
We are but lowly semathicists in the medium of code.
Just software artificers. We don't know much about the wizarding arts, but we will do our best to entertain you.
We know that as wizards you work on many planes of reality.
Yes, the many astral planes. We thought that we could maybe talk a little bit about some of the levels and planes that we work on as well. So
we've chosen an example that maybe is at least adjacent to your world. So as wizards, you sometimes need magical ingredients and supplies, and when you're in need of some Eye of Newt or Frog of Toad for your potions, where do you go?
You go to this guy, right?
Classic fantasy merchant.
A dealer in magical wares. But where does this guy get his stuff?
Did you ever wonder that? Well, we can tell you. Hopefully, if he's a clever, wise merchant, he gets his magical items from the Frabaw's Magic Company.
Purveyors of fine magical accoutrements, equipment, and artifacts for many, many years. Just kind of a wholesaler of magical wares.
Now, as a merchant and a major purchaser, he's not going to work from the mail order catalog.
No.
He's going to talk to his account rep. So here's one of our salespeople. This is Nim. Yeah.
Nim.
And when Nim visits one of their merchant customers, they go in with their eye scroll and their eye quill, and they enter the required items in the purchase order, and the eye scroll beams this up to the cloud. And that's where we come in.
Yes, because
as software developers.
We're responsible for implementing that software in the cloud.
Right. All right, so we need to architect some software for purchase orders.
Right, purchase orders.
Now, Avdi, how would you do that?
Okay, now I feel like I'm on the spot. Last time I felt like this, I was in an interview, and let's see, it was an architecture well, they said it was an architecture interview, but it seemed like all they really wanted me to do was define data models. So let's just define some data models, okay?
Okay, data models on a whiteboard, that's definitely part of our job.
Yeah, I'm comfortable here. Okay, data models. Order entry system, right?
Right.
Okay. I'm pretty sure we're going to need like an order entity, like an order data model thingy, right?
Order table, yeah.
Order table,
sure.
yeah, okay. And everybody knows orders have line items. Mm-hmm. And then the line items are going to have magical artifacts.
Okay, yeah, so we have the artifacts that we sell, and each line item is some quantity of one artifact?
Yeah, and then the artifacts, they have like metadata, they have data associated with them, like the name of it and the price.
And the price, okay, so the price is coming off the artifact. All right, let me poke a hole in this.
Oh boy.
So if I'm Nim and I go out to one of my merchants and I'm entering their purchase order, and the merchant is like, oh well, so and so competitor has this price, and I do a price match for that.
You're gonna change the price, but we said
on the whole artifact?
Well, we just said that the price is on the artifact, not on the line item, so that's going to change the price on the...
I don't want to give all my customers a discount, the ones who didn't know about the competitor price match.
That's going to extend across all the different open orders, isn't it?
That's not good.
I messed this up, didn't I?
Well, maybe not. Maybe we need just something additional.
Okay, well, what if... Okay, it sounds like maybe we need to draw a boundary, like an aggregate boundary, like they talk about in DDD, in domain-driven design.
Oh, right, like the book that we actually pilfered this example from.
And this boundary will say that these two things kind of, they get clumped together and they change together, and things outside of them change separately. And then maybe we could we could copy the price into the line item when we first make the line item, and then changing the price of one line item on one order isn't going to change the artifacts.
Okay, so the line item gets its original price from the artifact, and after that it can change separately.
Yeah, so that's the point of an aggregate.
That sounds like a good idea. All right.
Did I pass? Oh, right, I'm not in an interview.
Yes. You're great. Keep talking. This process of identifying aggregates is really important, like these related entities. And in this trivial example, it might seem kind of obvious because it's supposed to, but is there a way other than like drawing squares on a whiteboard and poking holes in them that we could identify these important relationships?
Yeah, especially because a lot of times when the examples are more complicated than this, we don't find them at the whiteboard stage, do we?
Oh no, we find them much later when it's really
later
painful.
on, yeah. So like, is there it would be nice if there was a way we could identify these kinds of problems earlier on. What if we could take the whiteboard and kind of rotate it to the side?
Are you allowed to do that in an interview? Oh wait, we're outside of the interview. We're okay. What is that?
Well, if we rotated the whiteboard to the side, we might see the lifetimes of these different entities drawn out. And we might start to see some patterns there, right?
Oh yeah, so we see like the order lifetime.
That's like up at the top.
Yeah, click it again.
Oh, yep, order
so
lifetime.
we can see that the order is like, it gets created.
Oh, that's not that one.
Oh shoot, sorry about that.
But you can kind of see, it's, the orders have a lifetime, and the line items, their lifetimes is pretty clearly visually associated with that lifetime.
It's it's contained in.
Like that makes a pretty obvious clump, and we could even.
Yeah, the life. Oh, so now we can notice that we can draw that circle in 3D around the order and the order item, the line item. Meanwhile, the artifacts live practically forever compared to the orders and line items. They're clearly a different life cycle. So there we have it. We have our aggregate in a slightly more insightful way of finding it.
Yeah, and maybe we could extend, and that might be a way that we could extend to finding more complex associations as well.
Yeah. And what else can we see in this sideways view?
Ooh, what else could we see? Well, let's go back to that.
Let's look closely at the changes.
Yeah,
here we go. Now we have the orders created, and then it's updated a couple times, and then it gets finalized and moved to fulfillment. At that point, we might still store it, but we never change it, so it's effectively dead in the purchasing system.
And then you got your line items. They get created. They might get removed before the order is done, and some of them live to the end of the life of the order. So what are these? These are
events.
These are domain events.
When we look at them, they tell the story of the entity, the order, and the line item.
And this is a practice called temporal modeling.
Oh, yeah. And when we look at these events, then we can ask, okay, but what do they mean? And for meaning, we have to go to a higher level of the system.
Oh, yeah, because this is the data, but to tell the story of the data, we have to do that with something higher level. We have to do that with code.
We enact the story of the data in code. So let's go up a level and look at some code. We can put that on a whiteboard.
For all the good that it's going to do us.
Okay, so this is good because as developers, my job is writing code.
Right. Our job is writing code.
At least in interviews. But sometimes I feel like...
No, my job is definitely writing code.
In interviews are some of the only times that I write code from scratch.
Oh, yeah.
Most of the time I actually care about the value that's going to happen from my code, and the best way to get to make some valuable code is to start with valuable code that's already in production being useful and change it.
I guess our job isn't writing code, it's changing code, isn't it?
Yeah, except for trivial starting points. Our job is changing code. Okay, so let's look at how this code changes.
Oh yeah, maybe we could look at the lifetime of the code too.
Yeah, this code, it Conveniently, we already have a visualization for the changes in code, and it's a Git Commit Log.
You may not know this as wizards, but this is literally what code commits look like inside of Git.
They take the changes and they kind of wad them up.
It's a very compressed format.
And I love Git because it does let me tell the story of my code changes. And sometimes it also lets me go back and tell the story a little better. So
like to revise the story?
Before I submit my pull request, I like to do an interactive rebase and make it look like I did the refactoring separately from the functionality changes.
So our job is changing code. And okay, what else can we see at this level?
Well, what's the significance? What's the meaning of these changes? Are they all significant?
I guess they're not all equally
significant. From a wider
significant.
level? No. Probably each of them had a build run, but only some of them got deployed.
Oh, so we could mark that.
Yeah, we can mark a deploy. If this is a service, it's going to be deployed. If it's a library, this would be like a release or a publish, maybe. But
you like to make a strong distinction between services and libraries, don't you?
I do, and it's about the change. Because if this is a service, and it is, this is the order service, because it has a database behind it, the service, as operators of the service, we control the pace of change. We decide when we deploy the new version, and everyone who's using that service gets that new version when we say we do. So we can safely update the data because we control all of the deployments of the code that's accessing it. Whereas if this is a library, I can publish it to NPM or our internal repository or whatever it is, but I don't control when that change makes it into production. That's up to every service that incorporates this library.
Yeah, so it sounds like the difference is who controls the pace of change.
Yeah, and if I'm pushing a library and I want people to use it, well, I can influence that a little bit. I can practice responsible change with backwards compatibility so that it's going to be smooth for them, with quick prompt security updates so that they have incentives to update regularly. Those are the kind of libraries that I want to use in production, the ones that change responsibly.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay, so our job is changing code, right?
So far. But I mean, this order service by itself, what does it do? What does it mean when we deploy this?
Oh yeah, what does it mean? Where do we find the higher meaning of things?
Up.
Oh, right, up. Okay, let's go up again.
Let's find yet another whiteboard. This one has the software system on it. So here's a snapshot of the architecture in someone's imagination.
You can tell that this is an architecture diagram because it has boxes and arrows and a cylinder.
But of course, now this diagram represents something more than a snapshot. It's not really a snapshot. It represents running code in production, code that's alive and doing stuff in the world. What does that look like?
Oh, you mean what does the timeline of that look like?
Yeah.
Oh, let's turn it sideways and find out.
It gets harder to turn sideways as it gets bigger.
It's heavier.
Okay, so now we see our services running in production, and we see some deploys at the breaks there. Hopefully they didn't break. But not all of these deploys represent meaningful change to the software system as visible externally to the users of the system.
You mean there's a difference between deploys and releases?
Okay, yeah, well sometimes people call things releases that I would call deploys. This is fine. I'm talking about feature releases.
Okay.
Externally visible, look, we did something, don't you like it? Kind of features. So let's mark those on there.
Okay.
Say some of these are features. So in this case, let's see, what's a change that we could make to our purchase order system?
Well, what if we were gonna add some extra information about the items, about the artifacts, like a pitch that the merchants that the salespeople could use to sell it to the merchants.
Okay, so it would be Super hot item, selling fast on the Sword Coast. It's the mask of disease resistance. Buy one for your whole family and feel safe while traveling. Okay, so we want to add a pitch. Now that's like, on one level, that's way down at the data. We're going to add a pitch field.
In the artifacts table.
Mm-hmm,
Yeah,
probably.
Probably.
And then we're
Maybe.
going to need to change some services, probably artifact service, also like the catalog service where marketing can enter a pitch. Yeah, and then the UI, so the salespeople can see it.
Right. In
And
the
these
line
deploys
items.
might happen at whatever order because our services are well behaved in practicing responsible change, and so they care about backwards compatibility and being smooth for the higher level software system. But then we can separate those from the releases, and we can wait until we're ready to send the email. We've got enough pitches in the database, for instance, we can send the email to Nim and the other salespeople being like, expect a change. And they're all like, oh. And we're like, no, this is going to help, really. And then
like
we
the
can
last
start
change.
showing it on the UI.
Okay, so they're not going to like see this mysterious empty field show up because the field showed up before the data came along.
Right. Because the
Okay.
meaning of this change is in the system wider than the software system. It's the world that's using the software, and so the salespeople need to know about that. At this level, responsible change involves publicity.
Right. Okay. Internal publicity.
For an internal system.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it seems like we work at a lot of different levels as developers.
We do. We talked about, we drew 3 of them. There's at least one more. And it reminds me of the levels in this tugboat that we found at the Maritime Museum a couple days ago.
Which is like 2 blocks over. Totally check it out if you have time. We really got a kick out of it, and that's why you're about to see a whole lot of pictures from it.
So we work at a lot of levels. And I mean, we know that.
Yeah, this is not a revelation.
Where's
to
the
you.
business of abstraction?
Right, this is what we do. We do abstractions. But the thing about abstraction is, as developers, we often want to approach abstraction in a way where we identify some concept, something that we're familiar with working with.
Like functions?
Yeah, like functions.
Or processes?
Or process or objects.
Objects, that's a
That's
big
been
one.
a big part of my career. And and then then what we want to do is we want to kind of like zoom out until we can see more and more of those things in a big field.
And put them in a bigger object.
Right, and then put them together into like the same thing. Like maybe we want to put a whole bunch of functions together into a bigger function, or a whole bunch of objects together into a bigger object.
And then you want to zoom down and make everything an object all the way down, so the number 1 is an object.
So it's turtles all the way down. Because that's very satisfying, isn't it?
But
It's
it
just
doesn't make
consistent.
sense. Turtles all the way down isn't how reality works.
Yeah, because we have this urge. It's very tempting to try to make things fractal, right? Boats within boats within boats. It's so satisfying.
And this works to a degree.
To a degree.
But eventually your shipping ships gets ridiculous. It's useful to push these abstractions farther than we've been able to in the past. But at some point, you need a modality shift.
Oh
wait a
yeah,
sec.
and because if we don't, bad things happen. If we try to extend these abstractions too far without a shift, bad things happen.
If you love transactions, then you might want distributed transactions.
Which does not work out so well.
It's a different thing.
And if you just love function calls, you're going to try and build function calls out of function calls until you start trying to make external services look as if they're function calls.
RPC is a bad idea, all right? Can we stop?
Stop.
Some things you don't want to hide. And if you take it to an even higher level, like for instance, if you take something that works for people in teams and try to make it work for divisions and organizations, then you get Agile for the enterprise. The same things don't work at different levels.
No. And this is kind of familiar too. Because we see this in the sciences.
We do. I mean, we have physics at like the atom level and smaller, and then you've got chemistry for molecules and biology for cells, and above that you've got ecology and sociology and anthropology, and these are different fields for reasons. We have different people, different communities, and we have different ways of reasoning about them. So the scientific method, as I learned it in physics class, works pretty well for chemistry too, where it's very quantitative, and you can kind of do some of it in biology a little bit, but when you get into ecosystems or teams, everyone is different. You are not getting any randomized controlled trials. But there are ways of doing observational studies that can check for percentages of causality between different elements, like in Accelerate. And you can do just try stuff and check. Rigor looks different at the different levels.
Yeah. It's rigor looks different. The language that is used is different. It's like there are different mindsets at these different levels, and we need those different mindsets at different levels.
Right.
And that's true in software as well.
We need tests for our functions. We need relational algebra for our data, maybe some formal methods down there. But once you get into distributed systems, you can do some reasoning about it, but you also need to check.
Yeah, it becomes more quantitative.
And then when you add the humans, you have to ask NIM, hey, what do you think of this field? Was it useful to you?
Yeah.
This is hard.
This is hard. Zooming up and down between these different levels with different mindsets is not easy for us. It's like climbing a really, really high rope ladder onto a mast.
Avdi calls this the nope ladder. It's higher than it looks. And I think this is one of the core difficulties of software development. While you're trying to decide what to type next in the service, you need to understand why you're doing it at all. And those are very different mindsets. And it's necessary for them to be different because the key feature of these different modalities is pace of change.
Yeah, it's not the scope of how many widgets go inside a bigger widget. It's that these are things that change at different rates.
The data changes super fast, the code changes faster than the data, and the externally visible software, the code changes slower than the data. And then the externally visible software changes slower than that. And that's important because other people are counting on it. But if you couple those rates of change, you really hold yourself back. If the only time you can deploy is the 4 times a year that we're going to do a release, you're really handicapping your teams. So this is like the correct reason to do microservices.
Is to decouple. So to decouple each one in the pace of change.
Yes, that is crucial. And we have a neat trick. We think it's a neat trick.
Yeah, it can be tricky navigating between these levels, ascending between these levels. We have a trick we've found which we think is kind of cool, and you've seen it a couple of times already, 3 times already. Rather than doing that zoom out in scope, we look for ways of taking the static snapshot of the system, whatever level we're working at, and we look for ways of turning that on its side and extending out instead along the axis of time.
Because it's the change that matters. It's the change that gives it meaning.
Yeah, and it's the change that defines the story.
So our job then, it's not so much writing code anymore.
I thought our job was writing code.
Our job is closer to changing code. But more than that, why do we change code? To architect software systems?
Oh, right. Our job is designing software systems. No, changing software systems.
changing software systems responsibly, keeping our changes useful and smooth for everyone else, which is tricky.
It sounds like we're designing something more than just the software system.
Yeah.
It sounds like we're designing the change itself.
Exactly. Our job is designing change in existing useful systems. And that's pretty hard. Our job is not designing the perfect architecture that we wish we had and we think we can get there in under 3 years. If we just add 200 more developers.
So what do we do then?
Our job isn't to get somewhere perfect, it's to get somewhere better.
Better, that's a tough word.
Okay, you're right. Better is also too judgmental. How about more appropriate for the context we're in?
Because better today isn't always yesterday's better. It's very contextual. So I like that formulation of like more appropriate to the context of now.
Yes, and the appropriate system 3 years from now is not what we're imagining today. That's why big design up front is an anti-pattern. But it's not that design is an anti-pattern. It's that we don't design any snapshots exclusively. We design how to get there from here.
So it's less about setting a destination and more about having a quest?
A quest!
A quest!
An impossible dream. So Frobot's Magic Company has a quest, and that is
add more magic to the world.
Yes. And that's separate from earning a profit. Earning a profit is a necessary condition to continue on our quest, but it cannot be our purpose. We won't get it anywhere meaningful if we're focused on profit. So it's about adding more magic. To do that, we need to make a profit. Fine. What do we do then?
Well, that's a pretty big, broad concept, a quest. Could we break that up a little bit?
Okay, yeah. So we see the star in the sky of add the more magic to the world. But maybe we can find like a mountain or a continent in that direction. And we can head toward it. Maybe that's we want a really good purchase order system to support our sales reps in the field.
Right, okay. But even that is a pretty big thing to aim for. It could take us a year or more.
And we can't see that far out.
No.
So we need our food supply in this boat won't last that long. We need a port that's within reach, within a few weeks or something.
Yeah.
Where we can get somewhere and stop and take a new bearing. And that might be add a pitch to the item information and then see where we get. And when we get there, we check. We get to that new port and we look around again with our telescopes and we say, oh, look, there's a change in the events. And salespeople are like adding and removing line items all
Wait, why
day
do
long
they
now.
keep adding and removing?
So
Adding, I get.
We call Nim up and we're like, Nim, buddy, are you adding and removing a lot of line items? And Nim is like, oh, yeah. Well, I want to get to the pitch. Good, they're finding it useful. But to do that, I have to get the artifact information to come up, and the only way to do that is to add a line item.
Oh.
Well, that's cool. That's information.
Yeah, that is information. It says that we have something else we could add, though.
Yeah. We could add like a screen maybe where they
Something
can
in the
just
catalog?
get the item info without maybe a button to create a line item from there.
Right.
And then once we have that, we might be like, well, we could add recommended items. If you buy disease of or mask of disease resistance, maybe you also need some potions of hand sanitation.
That would probably sell more product.
So that's a win. We wouldn't have thought of that from where we are now. We might have included it in our architecture of doom, in the pile of 70 other things. But aiming for the quest and then stopping at the next port gives us ways to learn as we're designing the change. And then we can design the change in small increments.
But when are we done?
There is no done. This is software. It's running and it's alive and it's doing things in the world. The only done is dead is out of production. The software needs to be alive with a team of humans who are at the very least keeping up its security updates and hopefully keeping it up to recent standards and continuing to improve it as the context changes.
And if they aren't?
Well, if you ship that project and allocate that team to something else, your software is dead and it's in production and it's a zombie.
Ah!
And it can eat your face. Now we can sell you products of protection from zombies, but they won't help you with your software.
No, that's out of our purview.
But
okay, so we can't get to done.
right, we just get to more appropriate. And at some point we kind of slow down and we get to this finished with engine phase.
Yeah, on the tugboat they told us that finished with engine, that's the captain sets it to that to communicate down to the engine room that like we're done maneuvering for a little while, you can go have a coffee.
Yeah, so maybe we go and start working on, focus on our changes on some other part of the software system. That's fine, but we don't let it die. We never get to stop until it's out of production.
Okay, but management is still going to want to hold us to account.
Oh yeah, accountability.
Keep us accountable for, delivering on our goals.
Okay. The word accountability, in the manner we usually use it now, is garbage. Holding people accountable for outcomes? We don't control outcomes. I mean, we can put that field in there, but we can't make the salespeople use it. And that may or may not influence sales. We influence outcomes, and so we want to measure them. But we can't be accountable for them in the blamey sense. Oh, and if you want to hold me accountable for deliverables, yay, you've got activity, but good luck with results. But there is a sense of accountability that is perfect here. In an older sense, to hold to account meant to have responsibility to tell the story.
Oh, an account, like a narrative.
Yeah, as opposed to a spreadsheet. Yeah, so we want to be responsible to tell the story of our designing change. Why did we try this? What were the results? What got in the way? What did we know then? What have we learned? And what are we going to do next?
Okay.
Yeah, so it's not the usual definition of done, but it keeps the software alive. When our job is designing change, how do we get good at that?
How do we get good at designing change? Well, we don't actually know.
We don't really know, but we have some ideas.
We do have some thoughts.
Oh, and we'll summarize a few of them here.
Yeah, so I'm going to give this to you.
Okay. The first pointer for designing change is you need to change from something. So understand where you are. In software, this can be a little tricky because our mental models of the system are always incomplete, but there's ways of checking. This is why we like readable code, so that we can go investigate it. Hopefully we can look at the data and like the events that our software system is emitting to see what it's doing.
Good to have, good observability into your system. That helps with understanding where you are.
But that's only internally.
Yeah.
Externally, it helps to talk to people.
Yes. The only people that really understand how your system behaves are the people who use it, or their proxies. One of my favorite people to talk to is customer support. They know so much about how the software actually works, or doesn't. And about how people actually use it, like adding line items and then removing them just so they can see the pitch.
What they wish it would do.
And what they wish it would do.
Yeah.
Customer support folks, nobody buys them, people don't buy them nearly as many free drinks as they do for us developers. But so go buy them a coffee, buy your local customer support person a coffee sometime and listen to their stories.
Get the real story. Yeah. And once you have some idea where you are, then you can decide where you want to go. But not the destination. You can decide the direction.
Right.
And then move toward it from port or landing zone to the next one.
Because you can choose a destination or you can design change, not both.
Yeah, if you try to choose a destination, you're like boxing yourself in.
Yeah, and you wind up constrained by the future.
like the imagined future in your head is holding you back. We've got enough constraints. We don't need that one.
No.
Right, so choose a direction, not a
Know where you are,
destination.
choose a direction.
And then here's an easy one, a quick little thought trick. We don't design systems, we design subsystems.
Wait a minute, I design systems.
Oh yeah? Yeah.
Some of them are subsystems and some of them are systems.
Do the systems, do like humans use them or maybe some other software?
Well, yeah.
Then they're subsystems.
Oh, so you're saying everything is a subsystem.
The only closed system is the universe and maybe not that. If your system works on your box but nobody interacts with it, then it's a toy. There's toys and there's subsystems. And that's what we have. And when you think about it that way, then you'll remember to change responsibly.
Okay, so always think about what I'm doing as a subsystem.
Right. It's not about me. It's about the wider system. That's where the meaning is. And speaking of the wider system, that's where we can tell the story.
Yeah, we've talked about this a few times already. Designing change means becoming storytellers. It means knowing how to tell the story. It means knowing how to see the story in the events of your system. And it also means knowing how to tell the story compellingly to the people that are going to be using your system or that you're going to be working with.
And the other people that you need to change, the other teams that also need to change their software to affect the wider purpose of getting to a more appropriate state of the software system. So bring them along on your quest by telling them what you believe, why we're doing this, and how it might be better.
And when we talk about being storytellers, we're not talking about it in the sense of being like an all-powerful author who stands outside of their story and decides exactly how things should go. It's more like being a dungeon master in a role-playing game.
Yes, so I am the dungeon master at my house, and my teenagers have a couple of their friends over every Sunday, and we hang out at the dining room table. And as the dungeon master, it's my job to have some idea of what's going on in our shared imaginary world. But they contribute. So like they're walking through the woods last time, and they're all like, "Rah! Rah! Rah!" And I'm like, well, something's
Teenagers.
gonna come out of the woods in response to that. All right. So they squawk the number of times that I decided, and rah! Here comes this
Yikes.
10-foot tall hook horror, right? Because it thinks it can mate with them because of the squawks, and I'm expecting them to fight it.
Right, yeah.
But
Roll
no,
initiative.
But no. Emery, my daughter, first thing she says is, "It's gonna be my pet." And then she rolls for animal handling, and she gets a 20 out of 20. And I'm like, oh, it loves you. It joins your party. Their contributions to the story matter. They make our shared reality richer and better, and they bring us all along. But I have to be open to change. We don't design change from the outside. We design it from within the system. The software and us are on the same team, and we're designing change from the inside.
Which means that to design change, we have to be constantly changing ourselves.
We have to be open to changing, learning, same thing.
Static people do not design change.
Right. So how do we change ourselves?
Yeah, that's the trick. How do we change ourselves?
In Brooke's presentation yesterday, she ended with a quote from Alan Perlis, which ended with, "Work hard to improve." All the zooming up and down. It's already really hard work. Can we work smarter?
It would be really nice to find a way to work smarter about changing ourselves, because the thing about changing ourselves, we like to think that we can just like set our wills to accomplishing change in ourselves. But more often than not, when I decide to just like set my will to making some change in myself, my will won't.
And this is normal.
This is normal. This is
not a failure.
This is a completely normal part of human psychology.
We don't control our actions. Here, I'll answer the free will debate for you here. We don't control our actions. Our intentions influence our actions. But so does our environment. So does what's easy, what's top of mind, and what seems appropriate.
Yeah.
And the definition of what seems appropriate is generally what everyone around us is doing. So like yesterday to open the conference, Francesco was like, if you hear the fire alarm, do not stop and look around. Do not ask what everyone else is doing. Go to the exit.
Because that's what we do, isn't it?
Do. We're like, what behavior is appropriate now? See what everyone else is doing. Yeah, so we don't change ourselves with our will.
Yeah, we have to
Alone.
kind of come at it.
Alone.
We have to kind of come at it sideways, a little bit sneakily, a little bit obliquely.
The first thing we need to do is stop being comfortable where we are.
Because if you're complacent where you are, you're not going to change. You might have an idea of where you want to go, but you're not going to do it.
Right, right. But an important point here is that being uncomfortable is different from being unsafe.
Yes.
In fact, to be comfortable, you need to be safe at a higher level.
Uncomfortable, yeah.
Yeah, so like if your team is moving to a new language system that you're not familiar with.
That's uncomfortable.
Totally. But if you can ask questions.
And feel safe asking those questions.
Then you can learn out of that discomfort instead of closing in and just hurting. So
Yeah.
discomfort and safety are related.
Yeah, discomfort and safety, they have this important kind of complementary relationship. And when I hear those two together, I always think of Sidney Dekker. Has anybody heard of Sidney Dekker? So Sidney Dekker is a guy who studies major industrial disasters and how to make organizations more safe. And this kind of safety is like the safety from being blown up.
Important.
And one of the things he's found is that the safest organizations are not the ones that have zero incidents, safety incidents in 500 days.
As a parent, I'm quite certain that silence does not indicate safety.
No, silence is scary.
Why is that? Why do incident reports make them more safe or indicate more safety?
Well, for one thing, they learn more about their organization that way and how they really work, but also because every time they respond to an incident, a minor incident, they get better at handling surprise, and they get more confident in their ability to handle surprises and come up with solutions on the fly.
Because that's what resilience is. It's handling everything that you did not think could happen. And this is what humans are good at.
Yes.
This is why we need humans in our software systems as part of the team.
Yeah, as the resilience engineering people will tell you, you cannot build resilience into software. Anybody who says you can is selling something. Resilience comes from the people side.
Yeah. Okay, and it comes from people because we can change and learn.
Yeah.
All right, so once we shake ourselves out of where we are and we shake ourselves out of the static friction and we're on the move.
We don't want to go just anywhere.
Yeah, so how do we direct that change?
Well, once we've introduced discomfort, we need to adjust our environment to make the way we want to change the easiest way.
And that environment is social, very much so, and physical, and especially for us, digital.
Digital, yeah. So an example of the social part of our environment, if you want to get fit, physically fit, the way to go about that is not to get that gym membership on January 1st.
No.
A much better approach is to start hanging out more with people who exercise all the time.
Oh.
Gym rats.
Oh, those people who were like, oh, I got another PR today.
Yeah, exactly. And then you're going to start wanting to get a PR too, whatever that is.
I submitted a PR. Does that count?
I don't think it's the same thing.
Right. I think they mean personal record. Yeah, so then you'll want to get personal records too, in addition to pull requests.
Pull requests.
And then also we can help ourselves by changing our physical environment. For instance, if I'm sick of losing my car keys, I don't need to just judge myself for being disorganized.
Yeah, if you want to get more organized, change your environment to support that. For instance, put a hook next to the door that is the easiest place to put your keys every time you walk in.
make the right thing easy. And
Easy.
speaking of hooks,
Hooks.
in our digital environment, so this one time, okay, maybe more than once, I pushed to master in my company's open source repository when I really meant to push to a branch. Oops. And the first time I did that, I was like, oops. And the second time I was like, Jess, you're an idiot. And the third time I was like, okay, no, wait, Jess, this isn't you. Your strength as a human is not consistency and eternal vigilance. That's for computers. So I made a Git hook so that if I try to push to master in one of our open source repos, it says, oh, you didn't say no really. And then if I actually meant to, I can define the no really environment variable, and then it goes. But now, instead of like pain and self-loathing, I get a laugh. I've changed my environment.
No.
And as developers, we have so much ability to change our environment because we work in the computer and we work on the computer.
Yeah, we're not just working. We're just not just working on the thing, but we get to make the things that we work with.
A lot of our work experience has to do with the software and tools that we're using, and we can change those. We can make our code more friendly. We can make our tools more useful.
We have more ability to do that faster than any other creatives in history.
We like craft our own reality for ourselves and our team. We make that difference, and that's magic.
Yeah.
And then through our software, we're also influencing the reality of the people who use it or the people who work on the software that talks to it. We change the outside world as well.
We construct reality for people to a degree.
Yeah, we add spells to the world. Like I learned this one a few years ago. If I move my fingers just right, a car shows up and takes me where I want to go. Ha ha!
Or I can summon up the infinite scroll of funny cat pictures.
And look, I have a crystal ball into who's standing on my porch right now. We do this. We are part of creating this magic in the world, of changing how people operate and what we can do.
And we do that by designing change. Fantasy writers, when they write about magic, a lot of times they make it out as if magic is something where you impose your will upon the world.
In some ways, it's like, if I just wanted it bad enough. We don't even impose our will on ourselves. But we can design change for ourselves and for the world. And that's magic.
That is magic.
We are all wizards.
So go forth, design change, and add more magic to the world.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.